Duck! You merry band of cricketers. Duck. Shooting started. The war has begun. Again. Apparently there's a new psyop on the horizon. We can maybe even call this one a false flag. It doesn't appear to be much different than in the news, what's going on in Orlando, Florida, or whatever. We're down in Florida. It's a psyop. Flora. Just like in France. Doesn't mean that people didn't die. It means that you're being played. As we were talking in the RLM chat, all the trigger points are being pushed right now. This broadcast will be BTW RLM 166 for the past cast. And thank you to all y'all that listen and take notes and go do what you're doing. This last week's been really, really full. We had a couple of responses to my request for help, and I haven't got to y'all. It's just too much going on. I'll get to you here at the beginning of the week again. Thank you for the inquiries, and just to let you know, if you're listening, it really will help if you have an idea of what you want to go after. It's easier for me to explain all these principles when you're looking at a real target to hit, something you want to go after. It's really, what can I say? It's almost too esoteric. It's repeated over and over. When someone comes to me or one of the guys I work with a problem, all of us, it's within just minutes, they can start to see the error of their previous thought and at least the correct perception of the current thought, and then they realize as they look around what we've been doing has been working to the extent it can when you're infiltrated and surrounded. That's no small feat I'm talking about here. That may have sounded like it's diminished, but it's just a lot of work, a lot of momentum and mass moving in a direction that nobody stopped. That we're having to trying to do in the little part that we do, which happens to be the foundation of your country, the soil. So it ends up being quite the big thing. And all you hear most people talking about, they're still talking about it. Everyone's ears perk up. Like you'll hear on prior broadcasts, you perk up when you hear the magic words, and that's okay. That's cool. Now that's a big deal because most people weren't paying attention that those words meant something. Those were the words that clued you in on who's doing the talking and what they're up to. But that's the extent of what you're listening to. Is now we've acknowledged we have a problem. What people don't do is they don't put that into okay. What does that mean in application, and what can we expect? That's where I come in. Over many years now, to take what you hear, what you see, and come up with strategies to defeat this thing that we're up against. And it's coming from, again, it's a multidimensional attack. And that doesn't mean in this reality multidimensional in subject matter. This is a multidimensional attack. It hits you at every point, mind, body, spirit, and all that may mean all that might mean to you. So we haven't been told what we're up against. That had to be identified. They certainly hadn't told us how to counter that because they wouldn't tell us that they even thought that we would need to. We've identified how that works, and then we've put that in application. And the experience, proper accomplished experience, keeps us solid and straight. And anybody again coming with a problem, it's helpful that you have your own. And what you want to do. Now, I don't know if I can cover all of it. So far, I've been doing pretty good. Whoever has a condition that they'd like to see an answer to, I can direct their walk. And what it is I can get you to the most directed point. And I was just thinking about it. I'm already off more, or I was going to go on my tabs. But let me get to maybe blend this in. After the broadcast, there was another broadcast on I think it was RLM Network, Real Liberty Media. And there was someone who a lot of energy, absolutely engaged in wanting to get the truth, believes he's telling the truth, getting the truth out, a lot of energy, and yet when I listen to it, I hear a bunch of failing to know how to apply what's going on, and the failure to recognize how to apply what the knowledge is that is known. And was directly what I try to tell you every week. You got to properly apply your knowledge. You have to weed through the weeds of the things that are no good for you. And I shouldn't have said weeds because I disrespected weeds. Weeds are good. Weeds can be good. The point is that you can't just take all this and just willy-nilly throw things out. There really is a way to approach it. I know it may be only the way we've done or I've done, and I tend to do a lot of the research and application before we'll suggest it for anybody I work with and perfect the processes. So this experience is what I speak through. And I really don't know of anything somewhere that I haven't done that I speak to. There's stuff, everything that I speak about is told to you not as a question. Now, it doesn't mean that I'm not full of questions on what the limit of that was, but certainly where we have experience of how to do something and we accomplish that goal. And I'll tell you folks, it's just been an amazing sight. You can't see this stuff unless you're into this. Things that other people or people in the system think are impossible, you can get done. And they don't even know how. But you're accomplishing things that no one understood was even there. Why? Because the reality that's been presented for most everybody, in fact, I think it is everybody. Very few people that can see that there's a problem, let alone actually start to function within the illusion it sends to be, but the reality that you are in a reality, but it's an illusory type of condition. And you're not told what that is. Now, I'm not going to sit here and profess to know exactly what that is, but we can tell what it is by how it responds, or that we can affect it by particular ways and approaches that I try to tell you. And I say it, but whether or not I say try only, I hope that it's, again, the power is in the reception. I could be putting this stuff out, and if there's no radio tuned to this frequency, forget it. I'm done. I mean, I'm just talking to myself. And I'm not here to do that. I'm really not here to hear myself and then have to listen to myself after the broadcast to qualify if I've done everything okay or okay enough. In other words, any errors I did hear of myself are infinitesimal compared to the subject matter. That some of you are stepping up, and I just can't appreciate that more for you, and I can't appreciate how much it helps me that you come with a problem, and I can direct you on a mission, and I can show you just quickly. Listen, the point is that when I start to direct you on your mission, you start to understand exactly what I've been saying. If you couldn't get it before, you start to see it. And now I'm speaking directly from a new experience here we just had in the last couple of weeks. There's another document that the Jefferson Mining District put out in response to a coordination failure of the state, but in their point was asking for public comment. We identified their administrative process failure and then laid it on them. And I've talked to you about it behind the woodshed. We've now laid it officially on them. This is now the second time. And that last statement now is getting traction. The people in the government, the people that are supposedly protecting you and representing you and think they know what's going on and have a say about you and your property and what you do in the world, they're finding out that they don't have it right in a substantial way. And so this last document, it exposes in a reverse order. It was authored in a way to not say that it was saying what it was saying and let the reader pick that up if they could see the facts. And essentially we go to that international violation, as I've talked to you on the broadcast already, and people read that and now understand. Where they didn't see before, they understand that we are in a condition that, given the facts, is a reality that they had never seen that was working in our lives right now. And that's what I've been trying to tell you to do. People are doing through the last writing we've made. They are putting the facts they read in place and saying those things are functioning, and therefore I cannot live in the fairy tale world I've been told or believed was in existence. And that throws your mind. That really it should disorient. One of the things, if it doesn't disorient you, then you're not really doing it either, because this is disorienting type of information. When you find out your whole reality, the perception of reality is altered, because you're finally being honest with the facts and how they apply, and asking start asking the question. You stop being clueless. Now remember, if you're clueless, you don't even have a question in your mind to have. That's probably the most dangerous creature in the world. Given we have free will, if you don't have a clue, how do you exercise that? You're done. You're done before you get going. So those with a clue ask the right question, And the answer that comes when it's the truth, it should really throw you down, throw you over. It just flips you over. You realize that the world you're witnessing is upside down. That's why it doesn't make any sense, although you've made sense of it. You've made your sense of it, but that's a false imposition that you've created. It's a fiction you've created. And so we try to right the ship of state, if you will, and we go and say, okay, listen, there's a way to communicate, and there's things we can rely on. Let's not throw everything out and try to reinvent a fairy tale world and new psychological attachments because we can't quite cope. Let's go in and see how they bound us up, and let's go and let's go ahead and do the impossible. Let's untie the Gordian knot. Let's go ahead and do that. How you can do that? You have to get engaged, but you have to come with a purpose. You can't just come with a knowledge. Oh, I want to know more. It's really not going to work here. You have to want to know more. What I'm saying is you have to come already. There should be something it's so bad now. There shouldn't be something in your soul that's not burning that needs to be quenched. So I'm not going to sit here and tell you I got all the answers to the universe and everything. I've got an opportunity to give you the insight of the harm. We're not doing that. We have an insight. The guys I work with are just phenomenal. I don't have to drag them to the water. There's nobody I work with that has a ring in their nose, so I can't drag them to the water, and then I don't have to drag them deeper to make the horse drink. The people that get involved come with a problem they want to solve, and they are working. And I can't tell you how much I just appreciate that. It's quite a marvel to watch it as well. And so we move real quick. When I meet up with people that want to do that, we move quick. So this doesn't take a long time. We may only give you a sliver of information in the context, but the principles of application are almost the same in every application. You go through and you do the same things, and a lot of this is just maybe a little nugget here for you all. I've said it over and over. You find whatever record you need to make, and you make that record before you move. You do your intelligence gathering. You apply the intelligence you have in what you're going to do, what you think you're going to do, to the action to do it, and you have essentially laid your trail before you get going. You've mapped out your trip before you go, and then you take your package, your cargo, and you bring it down your trail. And for the most part, most everything should be lined up, and those people that are going to be the bank robbers or the highway robbermen, you're going to have an answer for because you've already figured they're going to be there. In fact, you have to. They're there. And when we have this set up, it's not an instantaneous thing. You have to take the time it takes, and you have to deal with those that will be on the highway. But you've anticipated this, you've planned your trip well, and your odds of getting to your destination are really, really close, are very, very good. And then if it comes to a point when you're near the end, at that point, most people start to see the game, and then you might get help. So each one of us has to step up. I can just tell you this week was just an overloaded week for me, but in the face of even the overloading, more people are coming to do things, and I think they're doing them more properly, and they're seeing some progress real quick, and or coming to new awarenesses, which will bring them and those they know along to help us. I know there's a lot of experience out there. We're all probably, a lot of us are listening to me are probably pretty long in the tooth about all this nonsense. And we haven't had the successes, and in fact, our successes behind the woodshed are long and slow, but they are step by step. That I can't come to you, and that's why we don't talk about a lot of this. I can't come to you and tell you, oh, look at all the great, clear success that we have. It's because we're slowly dismantling that system of oppression. So we can't really tell and promote what we've done, because they'll put these people that listen to this, they start working energy to patch that problem. They can't patch what they don't know we've undermined before we let set up the building to fall, like a controlled demolition. Right now we're in the controlled demolition stage, going through the building, probably like the government did in 9/11. You got to set up the building to collapse, and then put the right energy at the right time to collapse it, right? That's just the way it works. That's what we have. We have an infrastructure that's been built inside a government that was never supposed to happen, but they got it in. The enemy worked. They got it in there. They built a scaffolding inside your own government. We got to go in, and we have to take out that scaffolding. That's why we need lots of us. Now, hopefully, what I do, it works on the main pillars of support that are connected to the foundation. And we show how that foundation cannot be connected with what they're doing. It's literally unconstitutional, even within the failed construct that we believe about it. It's still even violative of that. I've told you, these people that are in their own system are criminals to their own guidance. When I say target-rich environment, these people are so weak in the positions they are, I can't imagine why more people just don't come running to defeat this right in their face. But there isn't that many. That said, there are some, and there's more coming. And I'm just trying to encourage you all, even if your old ways, you got bit. I think there's a new look to be had. And I think there's a new way to approach it. And as I have told you over and over and explained to you over and over, there's no reason to set yourself in jeopardy like we may have before in thinking that there was actually a system of justice in the world for us. The exceptional Americans. We're finding out we're not so exceptional. And we're finding out that we had work to do, and that makes us a problem to ourselves. That has to be fixed. That can be fixed. Then we have to get rid of those that put this on us, and there's a method to that doesn't bring you into jeopardy like it did people like Ammon Bundy. And I've talked about the failures there, and I don't want to even call it out, but I'll just mention it. I overheard that conversation from last week after the broadcast. It was another broadcast, and the party that was speaking was the guy I talked to that was at the refuge. And if you listen to the vast amount of jumping around that was done on the subject matter and the one simple questions that were asked, he never got to the answers. That's what we're dealing with. I could never have a conversation around that. There's nothing stabilized in those conversations. There's no fact you're going to get out of no answer you're going to get out of someone that does that. And you have to settle down and you got to get the facts laid for yourself. And when you start bouncing around, I'm just telling you, you're not on point, because everybody I work with, we stop bouncing around. I learned that a long time ago. I said, we're trying to keep up. We're trying to educate the criminal that he's breaking the law. He already knows he's breaking the law, so he's just wasting our time asking questions. So it's time for us to bring the law and point out to those that don't follow to the criminal. And boy, that sure streamlined a whole lot of stuff. It streamlined everything to the point that I can write a 3-page document that it goes through our internal review for the district. It gets agreed to. It gets sent out in response as an official governmental document. It's responding to another governmental an entity. It's like a letter rogatorio if you want to move into international law, folks. You want to look at a whole other thing going on. And we can out them as the criminal as they are, and people see that. Then they start to get the perspective, and most everyone who understands that gets it immediately, and they literally have a little bit of a meltdown. Really in dismay that the facts that they see in the world determine something other than what they thought. Once they come to terms with that, it takes a while, it takes a couple days at least working that over. You've got to chew on that for a while. Then you come to terms with there's a job to do. And until you're into this process to start doing that, you're really just, without judgment. See, it's just a matter of making that decision. You're just part of the problem. You're walking as an accessory to the crime being committed against you. And I don't know how anybody can be right with that. And I know there's a lot to do in life, and I know they keep putting the E-types on us to keep us pinned down to our necessities. But that's the point. That's how they figured out how to take you out, and you're going to succumb to that. So if you have a better thought in your mind about leaving the world a better place, these people that we're up against are literally, I just can't see them any different than they're beyond crime here now. They're beyond international crime. They're concentrated evil. They're the agents of concentrated evil. They're not actually concentrated evil. They're the agents of concentrated evil. And they have a whole lot of people really kind of messed up. And that's easy. When they get you without foundation, it's easy to divide you. They divide you inside your own self is the problem. And so you have these situations like what I'm now going to get to the tabs. The Ammon Bundy refuge thing, getting over to that. I told you the information was given to those people. Then Finicum was shot, and if they would have done what I said, I'm not going to say I had the answer, but they would have not have been on the highway that day because they would have been rethinking that something was coming down and it was going to be detrimental, and they need to reposition the public's opinion of them and show that what was coming against them had no authority. And I've told you all about that on the broadcast, and so that's a record. I live and die by this thing as well. Those of you that would go back and listen, and you have the evidence to call me out if you can. I'm not saying that as an ego trip. I'm saying that I live and die by it. If I'm wrong, I need to know so I can fix it. But right now, no one can call me out. That's either I'm wrong and there's a lot of people that don't know that, or else I'm not wrong. And if I'm wrong and a lot of people don't know it, then it don't matter either. But because maybe there's a new way in the world, we need to start thinking to work better than watching people get executed underneath a color of authority of so-called justice and order and peace. You know that execution is a reference. I tell you, again, all these things are mirrors and reflections. It's what we do to ourselves, we do to other people. What we do to other people in other lands, we do to ourselves. It's a matter of degree or scale. The big news, and I'll move on from here. A judge dismisses one of the gun charges against Ammon Bundy and the 7 co-defendants. Now, okay, that's a big deal. But I want to explain to you what I've been trying to explain to you all about how this works in the processing, at least how I see it works through the courts, and been doing this for a while. And I'll let you just straight up. After I saw there was no justice quite a few years ago, I stopped entering the courts on their terms. So my knowledge is from before, when I thought there was these things. I learned the process back when. But recently I've had to alter and realize there's an enemy in the gates. There's an enemy in the system. We actually have no government that's actually constitutional, and I've dealt with it that way, and you know what happened in 2013 in our lawsuit. You've heard me tell you that we're not getting any response out of the so-called officials under oath pursuant to a law in criminal complaints against those that are violating principal foundational soil disposal laws as crime. And I'm not doing it as my opinion. These people can't answer to the being criminals, and internationally so. That, again, the proof here is self-evident. If everybody could just know my mind and see what we've done actually, and see the crickets the government is against a true allegation. I already, in fact, I just know this stuff from my research. I keep telling you the state was supposed to answer in our lawsuit, that they shall answer. They shall defend every officer in the state. I knew that was the case. I saw enough court cases to know that, but I didn't know where in the state that we were suing, that was the fact. And 2-3 years after the fact, I find there is a statute. It says exactly that. The government shall defend its agents. In our case, they didn't even dare open the can of whoop-ass. They saw the label clear as a day. It's better for a liar, a lawyer, a bar member, a political party, politician, politic. It's better for them to shut up and deny. Shut up or deny. First deny, and then if they're going to lose it, you shut up. And that's what we're seeing. When you catch the criminal, how is he going to answer to his criminality? He's not. If he's really intelligent, if he's evil, you're going to see him turtle up. And so I'd rather be living with that offensive going against them than to be crickets and find out I got a ring in my nose that I keep complying with. For those of you that have found yourself in compliance, I'm not saying to uncomply. I'm saying that I told you before, that's your limited liability to attack them. If you're concerned about what kind of damage you can sustain against yourself in case you do it wrong, understand these licenses are permissions to do the crime with those penalties, limited liability penalties in the statutes. You're not sitting as an open target like myself without the connections. There's no limited liability. But then again, I'm not doing anything unlawful. So see, I don't have to worry about that. But when you understand this dynamic, it removes a lot of pressure. It lets that removal of the pressure of fear or whatever it is, of apprehension, lets you focus more energy on the task. And so what I want to point out about this one gun charge being removed, I won't go through the discussion. It's just too hard to do that. And in part, this is kind of an interesting odd discussion on I think the judge is trying to figure out a way to get this charge dropped for some reason. It just seemed to be some of the logic, as usual, you'll hear. These are just people who we believe their opinion is better than your own, and that an opinion is the law, and this is the kind of reality you live. But so I won't go through the ins and outs of how she came to the determination. I just want to point out something to you. This was on a motion to dismiss. I've told you before what Ammon Bundy should have done, challenge the jurisdiction up front. So that's not been done. So they allowed this judge to have an opinion on this one charge. And it's a serious charge. It would have been a penalty of life, potentially life imprisonment for all these guys and women, whoever they are. I think it was David Fry's attorney that puts this through, but they did a motion to dismiss. That means that they've given a jurisdiction, authority to the judge in a jurisdiction that I've shown you before, explained in our court case in Jefferson Mining District versus Kitzhopper et al. 2013 proved, not in the case, not in the injunction complaint or the default, but in the redress against the trespass of the judge and the clerk in the case for quo warranto, that they did not answer to show that either the court that they were sitting in exists, that it was established for the purpose, that they had a commission inside it, and that they had a right to make a hearing and a determination. In fact, the purported dismissal order that the judge that's committing trespass on the case and making fraud on the court, in other words, he was making a felony proof that there was not going to be any justice, his statement right out was that he had no jurisdiction. He had to really say that, but then he went on. But he's a trespasser on the case, so all that's void if you know the law. And so we proved in our case that this USDC court in Portland has no jurisdiction. This judge, whoever she is, has no authority, and yet the attorneys pled these people into that jurisdiction where they failed. They lost the ability to do the initial discussion that they didn't have to arraign to this charge at all. In other words, they missed a big step, which could have been the domino step to go after the rest before they arraigned themselves, that I want you to know about. Pre-plea remedies and avoidance were waived here, that you have a second chance, and you're seeing the second chance here where they call the motion to dismiss after the court gets jurisdiction, and you waive that challenge until you know better to say, oh, wait a minute, I made a mistake there. And so this ruling is big, and it's a good in their favor, certainly. But I'm looking at this as a failure, an internalized professional failure to actually do defensive maneuvers that you need to know about. Now, why is it important if you're not going to be charged? Because you have every day, you're dealing with people every day with government or some opinion or some property owner or somebody that thinks they got an opinion, and they're going to talk to you about all the authority they got, to interfere with you. And the application of this pre-plea remedy, in other words, before you get engaged and agree to enter into a dialogue with somebody, you go through your defenses against it. As I think I said last week, don't even start a false premise discussion. You've lost. If someone doesn't have the authority, don't give them a say. And so it's just consistent across the board. It doesn't look like it's important to you. You didn't go to the Burns. You've never been in federal court. You're not facing all this. You probably won't ever do it. You may think a little clearer than these guys did and know the reality now that you listen behind the woodshed that maybe this constitutional republic isn't quite what it's all socked up to be, and it's kind of been converted from there. We had some other things to do and act different. We had some different conduct to make in order to set the real record straight. There's a number of records, actually. There's the official record, the administrative records. There's the record of conscience, and there's a record of public opinion. There's all these things that go on, all playing at the same time. That had they thought more clearly, instead of believing the reality they told, that there's a constitutional republic that's actually in play, they would have made their plea remedies that would have eliminated this charge. And I'm saying that this charge may have set the stage to be able to let the rest fall as dominoes because they're improperly applied. One of the comments on this story is, you'll get this in the blogcaster, is that the David Fry's attorney said that this was a burglary definition imposed upon a conspiracy charge. And that's another lesson, folks. These attorneys are supposed to only do justice. They're not supposed to charge you this wrongly. No one's going to get sanctioned on this either. It was wrong for them to abuse the language that I keep telling you is very important, if not right now the importance. And and that's what's interesting, I guess, about looking at this discussion with the judge, going through the definitions and how she comes to how they're applicable, how they're not. And the extent over which this conspiracy charge would reach, but not to a certain point. Now, my reading of this, without any real deep inspection, appears that she's broadening the definition to bring the other charges relevant. So I'm a little concerned for it at one level. But one more charge is dropped, I wanted to point out that this is a procedural failure, proof of a procedural failure. This charge should not have been arraigned to, and they shouldn't have had to go the second attempt, which was successful, but they shouldn't have had to worry about the second attempt to move to dismiss that charge before trial. And so these are just process things. I guess reasonable minds can differ, but I don't know how reasonable it is to consider that when you waive rights, you're doing something right. I want you to know about it. This happens in administrative law as well. This happens in code enforcement. All this stuff is all the same. They all apply. Just maybe the terminology might be slightly different in your avoidance. I said avoidance. Let's listen carefully. Not evasion. Not what the government does. It's what you can do to lawfully avoid what you have lawful right to avoid. You're not evading the law or evading justice. You're avoiding something that's wrongly applied. They could have done this prior to plea. Luckily, they got it the second shot. And so I just want to point out to you the things I've told you are right here in the news for us to consider. And I suggest to you due process is a lot of these steps that a lot of times get waived. And you would be much better to know your options ahead of time and start asserting those immediately. In a way, that's what the debt paperwork is about. If you go look at this debt, I don't know what they call it now. There's lots of little debt programs. All they're actually doing, you go to the Federal Debt Collection Practices Act, and they're just exercising all the due process in there. And there's a ton of it, all to avoid or perfect. It's either avoid because they can't prove the right, or you avoid, you perfect the defense against their lawful right to charge, whether that's money or charges in crime, and that can be reduced to money. It's all about money, commerce, and all this other stuff, and all these charges are in commerce. So I don't know what the heck they're talking about the refuge over there in Malheur when that was a land disposal condition. It should have been in the state anyway. So all this stuff was not brought in. They allowed this judge to have an opinion, and she said that it's one charge was no good. So just wanted you to hear about that. A lot of people may take a lot of hooray with it. Yes, it's good that they're not being charged with it, but it really is us agreeing to a lesser standard. And it's us agreeing to a jurisdiction that hasn't been proven, and a bar association that's allowing it. Again, remember, their House delegation resolution says they will steal your property, your rights, and your remedies, and everything else you thought was yours where appropriate. And that means to you, as I look at it, and that serves me well to think about it this way, is where they can get away with it. Okay, so let's use these object lessons. They're all around us. I just can't tell you how much we're being told, and we ignore over being. We'd rather be USA, or just screw the USA. We take both sides. We've lost, and that was SCROO for those of you with sensitive ears. I want to get back to something I spoke last week, and I didn't read it. I was wondering how many of you had went to the Blogcaster to find it. We're talking about this is why police beat people. 2 police academies caught on video teaching excessive force. Remember, I told you that was a military execution. The military consequence is being admitted right here. But I hope you all went. I hope some of you did. I tell you, I don't tell everything on these. A lot of it I'd like to have you find out for yourself. It's your own little excursion. But I did want to retouch this because it was so darned important. About this jurisdiction, extent, and reach, and other elements of evidence, and elements for evidence of the reality that you actually live in, but for the contrary to the one that you think you're living, or that you've even been told you're living. Right in the middle of the article, near the top, interesting little paragraph I wanted to touch here. The military consequence, I tell you, were occupied people, or at least let me put it in a better, more generic sense, because it's not locked in either. The high probability that we're living under an occupied force, and a number of them, and for various reasons. It's not all that. We got the new one here that we're dealing with, like sustainable development. That's a recent one, but that's a foreign imposition. Then we got the internal one that was actually foreign but domestic put on us, that we're talking about. We'll be talking about right here, which I connect up. That is now melding itself. Those authorities from the past, from Lincoln's time, are melding into the one of the future. And again, it allows me to see the things of the so-called presidents that you all waste your time voting for in commerce as a franchise, as subject to some electoral college that's a hand-picked few. This whole thing is, again, it's just laid bare the nonsense. I've been able, I think I've been the only one able, that has, not able, but has done this, connect up Lincoln with Roosevelt with essentially Obama, to keep it nice and short, and to show you I predicted, because of these connections and just what I've been talking about all this time, that we were going to watch Obama just destroy this nation. And if you all think it's because of Black Lives Matter or not, or I'm a racist, forget it. If I looked at it and if I had actual voice and a druther and a choice, I think I would have rather picked Harriet Tubman, actually. So let's get off all that other nonsense. I've told you before, I think a strong black woman might be an answer for this country, although, we have bad consequences in reflection. As I told you, Ron Paul coming in underneath the Keynesian defeat would have been the wrong answer financially. They would have had to go really slow to make that transition back over. And I explained how that would work, even though I'm not an economist. There's just a logic behind this thing. You just work out how this works, where they put everybody in law, how they get everyone beat down in certain places, and all of a sudden you become incapacitated and you can't do. The demand upon you to perform better is not there in you. It's like a car without a gas in the tank. And so this austerity type thing and all the regulations are working as an oppression. It's an official oppression. It's another so-called civil rights violation. I use that term advisedly, civil rights, because that's the exactions of every kind you pay, and that's the one you have equal right to pay. So that's Title 42, 1981, for those of you that haven't heard that. But here's what it says in this, in the middle of this, which I was just fascinating. They're telling us left and right. It was, employing militaristic stress techniques, and they're telling you that they do this, and only few schools don't, because they're finding out that also doesn't work. And it doesn't. I mean, this is why there's so-called law of war, the oxymoron there. They try to make war a little bit nicer, because they realize, and the Romans did figure this out, you beat down all the people and destroy them, and all of a sudden you don't have food for your armies, you don't have real land that's productive. Your production goes away, and your state fails. So it took a long time in the history of mankind to come to this point where they realized, well, if you kill everybody, then the land goes fallow and goes wild and it's useless, and then you die. And so the law of war was how to treat people in the consequence of war, how to treat them as fair as we can possibly get away with. Because of that. It's not for the people. It wasn't for their property. It's to sustain the occupation. It's pretty simple when you start seeing it. But so here, let's get to the paragraph. And I hope you all said, I didn't see any comments come back to me saying, hey, did you notice this? This is where I want to get to the point where people are like interacting with this knowledge so that we can kind of say, yeah, that's a focus. Let's look over here. Let's look over there. Now you know that. You don't have to call it out. You just work with that proof in your mind. That's exactly what we're dealing with. And if we're not, it sure looks like we are, so let's treat it the same anyway. In other words, when I'm doing an action, I look at the worst case scenario and I answer the worst case scenario. Anything short of that, I've had it handled. It handles itself, actually. But here it says, let's read it. The unqualified one is mentioned right here in this school community policing training that we find out uses military techniques. That I told you is just the police under costume, the military under costume of so-called police. They're not peacemakers, they're military people. The unqualified one they call President Obama's official directive of law enforcement embodies community policing. But such training courses, as in evidence in the videos, are antithetical to the very idea of collaborative problem solving, community trust building, and integrating police into the localities in their charge. Let me read that one more time. Listen very carefully. Obama's official directive for law enforcement embodies community policing. But such training, that's this military-based training, courses, as evidenced in the video, are antithetical to the very idea of collaborative problem solving, community trust building, and integrating police into localities in their charge. What did I tell you about the military? The people that are running this thing are even contrary to their own code, and they're outside. They're concentrated, evil criminals. Community policing, you have that in your towns. This is coming from this guy in Washington, D.C., a district, not your state. What official directive could he have over your state? And that he has one over your state under community policing that's been agreed to by the bar to be perfectly okay for the police to come in for your care and security, to knock down your door. Where do you think the community policing, community care statutes came from? But the federal government. What right do they have to be functioning in your state, inside your county, in your property? You have to answer that. And what kind of a government are you in when the federal government has direct access to your front door being bashed in? That this guy has an official directive about community policing. Point one. Point two, that the military training, the execution squads that are being trained as looking like police, that training is counter to even community policing. It's a violation to it. Community policing is a Sustainable Development Agenda 21, and we know that by their list of what they tried to accomplish under community policing. So these military people that you think are police, this is an international force that's being developed already. It's in the federal specter. It's already international, utilizing international guidelines. In this paragraph, which no one commented to me about, it tells you what we're already under, and it's consistent with a military occupation of your life, but it's international. It's a foreign side. It's being directed by foreign agents. Let's go through the community policing, what that really is. It's focused on the community. It's the community they've fabricated up around your neck, and you didn't keep your Republican form. And what is involved in it? Community policing. It's community military policing is what this is. It comes from the authority of the federal government where Lincoln beat down the states and took away their sovereignty and made them districts. In part, there's a whole other discussion about all of this. But community policing, what's the elements of community policing? And they tell us that this military execution is a crime, even against community policing. What did I tell you? These people are committing crime. They're concentrated evil. What's on us? It's antithetical to, now here's the list of elements of what community policing is, and you tell me, so that for those of you that aren't quite yet doing that, I'm hoping most of you are already kind of heard the terms, the trigger terms, as we were talking earlier as well, of what this is, that it's foreign. That it's a tied to this sustainable development, or what they called it. They told them in Britain and Europe was Agenda 21. They told the Americans it was sustainable development, so we wouldn't know. Where did I get that? Not my opinion. It's not some green book somewhere. It came right from the Bar Association's own House resolution, House Delegates resolution, and I read that behind Woodshed. Here's the list for you to listen for. It's collaborative problem solving. Collaborative problem solving is a felony against you. How do I know that? Go look at JeffersonMiningDistrict.com and read all the things we're talking about on the MMAC problem. You'll see the same words right in there. You'll see our lawsuit talks about methods for destroying our property, our production, and our Republican form of government. You'll see the same words. Collaborative problem solving is consensus-based issues that are fabricated issues that stakeholders make and partners execute. It has nothing to do with you. It has to do with this veneer of foreign authority on you and how they're dealing with you. That this community policing that the bar has allowed to be able to come and knock your door down is vested with these elements to perform through collaborative problem solving. The next one is community trust building. They get you to have confidence in their community. Remember, this is coming from the federal government directive. Don't forget this hierarchy. This is critical to understand. This is critical how you understand how we're being taken out. How they're doing it to us right in front of our face, and we think it's all hunky-dory. Community trust building. It's they get you to do public buy-in. Where you heard these terms before, folks? I mean, it's all here. What we said before. It's all consistent. It's almost a broken record consistent. But I wanted you to understand this is coming from the federal president into your front door in your states. Where did that power come from? And if you say, well, there shouldn't be, I'm telling you there is. And when there shouldn't be, you have to throw down your shouldn't, and you got to pick up what is and reanalyze your reality. And the last one here was integrating police. Now, don't they always talk about integration? They talk about it in this multiculturalism sense. It's integration. They want to integrate everything. They don't want to make anything non-dependent. They want to make integration or the hive mind here, folks, controlled by a central bureaucracy without property, without any rights or remedies, or if you think you have them, they're going to be reflexive, like knee-jerk reaction reflexive, that you've given permission to a judge you voted into office who's a bar member who will get away with what's appropriate when they take you down. That integrating police. Now, folks, you're supposed to think that, you think that your police are local to you, and you just hired a local Joe into office or wherever they're trained, and you have to have local standards and all these other things and certification. It looks like the state's doing something for you. You're homegrown people out of your land. No, these police come as a status, and they're integrated into your communities that they've created. Not your cities, not your towns, not your counties, not the people. No, the rural and the urbanites. This veneer, not the realities, not the real stuff, the veneer things, but they integrate the police. That's outside coming in, folks. Think about this. You really have to think about this. Paragraph just kind of wowed me a bit. They're saying it right here, and everyone's going to read right past it. So I kind of did a trick. I just didn't read that part. I didn't want to go through all this discussion last week with all that other stuff, and it's like this week I got just this. I got plenty more, but I'm saying this is how long it takes, I think. I hope I'm not dragging my feet too slow that you start seeing it. It's not just about knowing it, folks. It's about knowing it enough to know what to do about it. So your police are being integrated into, from outside, into, as a status, which is that international military consequence we live. And they say, integrating police so that they look like you. It's a costume. So they look like you, and they get public buy-in from you from the outside. You get to chum up with them. Well, that's not possible. Everyone hates these people. And so this is another reason why you can't give any credit to the police, because they're foreigners in your land and you don't know it. And they're foreign from the concept of what you thought was an individual state with sovereignty. This is actually Lincoln's time revisiting us, as I said long time ago when the unqualified one made his first speech before he was president. Then I did it on by just analyzing these words they're using today. It hasn't changed. It's gotten worse. In fact, you see all the military that's around us, and we kind of keep going. We need it because of terrorism. They haven't figured out the government's a terrorist. Remember, the real definition for terrorism, if you haven't heard it, is a system of government that rules by fear, intimidation, and dread. A system of government is not a guy in a bomb vest or a guy holding an AK or someone that goes shoots a bunch of people that calls himself a Pakistani. No, it's none of that. It's a system of government that rules by fear, intimidation, and dread. That the government leads with terrorism fulfills the first term, fear. And so, integrating the police from outside, you think they come from you? No, it's coming from outside. It's a status. Police integrating into localities in their charge. They're invested with a duty, a charge. Under what? What authority if they're coming from the outside? But the military authority to keep the peace on a military scale. The occupier, folks. This is the occupier that happened in Lincoln, integrating the foreign imposition of sustainable development by term. And like I've told you, collaborative. And again, if you JeffersonMiningDistrict.com, I think it's on the left-hand side. Look for the MMAC documentation. You want to read how this works and how people in the mining community are claim themselves to be in the mining community and claim themselves looking out for miners are absolutely imposing this upon private property owners, saying it's a great thing. We've done the analysis on how it's a felony against you. It's the same thing. These police are a felony against you. This is not, again, my opinion. There's a substantiation in the writing, and you got to go, again, it's kind of a concentrated writing. You have to kind of go research. If you feel that you really want to know, you got to research the citations of the authorities, the law that tells you all about this. And so you have the police are foreigners under the directive of the unqualified one in Washington, D.C., imposing Sustainable Development Agenda 21, whatever you want to call it. It's a felony against you. They're not there to protect you. They're there to secure the military occupation. That paragraph, look at it. I don't even know how long I've been talking. 20, 30 minutes now? There's a ton to talk about here. But I didn't talk about it last week. I hope some of you saw it. If none of you saw it, I don't know what I want to say about that. I'm hoping that you step up even a little bit higher. This stuff is right in front of us to see. And once you know this, you have a whole different dialogue. I don't even have to go, I don't get into, like I told you, a discussion. I know that's their policy. It's coming from the federal government. I know it's foreign to your state. If you have a Republican form, they can't do that. You would just impose it. I know the ending before we get started. It doesn't excite me that or doesn't cause me question that the DA didn't answer, the two judges didn't answer when they got criminally charged for money laundering. They didn't answer their their notices to be defaulted if they didn't answer. The state police trooper, the trial court administrator, all been complained 3 times now to a sheriff. Silence on the sheriff. We told him already. We're moving on. We're moving on up now. We're going to go a constitutional criminal complaint against you. It's already known that this is going to happen. That's a big deal because a lot of times you'll wait around. You wait your time hoping they come and give you an answer because you want the pain to stop. No, these are a bunch of criminals. They've inserted themselves in your life and we didn't throw them out. Here's the proof. And if this is not a proof, markonthebeast@yahoo.com. I want to know why you don't think this is a proof. I don't need a long-winded statement either. Don't overpress me with what you think you know, because it won't hold up. I want to know that these answers are very short anymore, at least for me. And I can show you, for you, how they're really short as well. So Obama's official directive is the one imposing community policing, which has in it the elements of your demise, a felony against your way of life. This is treason right here, folks. I mean, I don't know if you get this. Okay, I'm pausing. I want you to really think about it. I mean, really, this is right here, one paragraph. And, we all missed it. If no one really saw this and no one cared to go to the links as I provide them. One paragraph tells me really all I need to know. Actually, when you think about it in the context of what we're talking about here, a supposed united sovereign states, countries abroad each other, whose agent is a district in Washington, D.C., ceded certain lands for certain purposes, to do the international bidding of the several states. When you stop seeing that, folks, you should have started thinking, wait a minute, and we didn't. And so this little paragraph right here, I guess I have to put a smile on my face. I cannot be so wrong, folks. If I'm not again, I'm not talking about, I have to be so right. You get in the nether regions of psychology, the psychology of people and perception and the what is and what's reality. You're walking in the wilderness. You're the wanderer. And there's not many people you're going to run around with. There's just not. Oh, you might cross paths with someone every once in a while, and you may exchange notes and confirm where you've been. And it just keeps you in the wilderness a little bit longer to make sure you've seen it all, because while you're walking through it, you're saying, I don't believe I'm actually seeing this. I don't believe I've been that duped. A lot of time spent doing that. And we make excuses, so that's why I don't get into too much of the dialogue and the conversation and trying to explain, all this on and on. I mean, it's just, okay, we'll find out whether or not it's going to help you. If it's part of the PSYOP or false flag, whatever, just understand that, put it there, and continue focusing on what you have to do. This paragraph all by itself explains a condition contrary to what we all have been told. And I think that it's across the world, whether or not there's a better insight, let's say in Europe over this, or they might have had a better insight as to what this so-called Agenda 21 they were told was about. But it's the international military order. And I've told you again, it's real simple. Go to Libra Code. I think there's a link still. I think I've just perpetually put it down there on the Blogcaster page. Read the Libra Code, and it will tell you that when you see that the military will set up systems that will not expose the military control, to tell you you cannot look at the false front and know that it's ever actually legitimate and de jure. When I found that out, I just didn't know what to do, because then what do you do to identify when it's actually right and de jure, well, made up of the people actually without control from an unseen direction. That little provision in the Libra Code should astound people. You cannot trust what you're looking at. That statement requires that you engage so that you know that there's no shenanigans going on. And this is what I get back to the mining district. There's the few of us that are together to move this forward. There's nothing going on behind the scenes that's underhanded and controlling. We all come and we all make decisions. In fact, this document I've been telling you about, our final one, this last one that was the final one we've made so far, is going to be made available because it's starting to resonate with people and their understanding. In other words, we don't have to waste time arguing with people. They get it on this one. And we're going to it's going to be a formal presentation made to a county. Once that's done, that document's going to be made available so that others can see it, because we haven't promoted what we do, but everybody in the district understands this is what we're doing. There's no shady shenanigans going on. That's the kind of government that we have to have. And if you're not doing that kind of integration, you're not in a government. And it is literally controlling you. You can't know the false fronts that you look at. That's stated right in the Libra Code for anybody that's paying attention. You're living in a spaghetti western. Everything's a false front. This statement right here tells you that. I just say it in different words, folks. I said in a paragraph what I'm telling you for a half hour or more. And maybe some of you already clicked away and you're tired of hearing it because you're either not going to do it or you know and you don't know what to do about it. I don't know. These are some very powerful insights that you need to understand beyond I know. This is, okay, I see that. Another consistency. And then I see the melding between the military order, melding the new way process. And I heard him say that there was a lawsuit back in 2013 that said that this melding, this condition, is a treason and a destruction of the Republican form of government. I don't know what more you need for proof now, folks. I know then the only decision for y'all is to decide what little thing do you see in the world that has to be made right, because it's wrong. And then you just focus your attention on it. And it's not that hard. It's not that hard. Yeah, it takes some you have to put some energy to it. That's what it takes. It takes focus. It takes intention. It takes persistence. It takes that. But it's not hard. It's really easy. It's just making the right decisions to be in the right place, to be that one that makes the change where you can. The knowledge of this will not overthrow the system of that. But it certainly can change your perception of what you anticipate and speed up the process of how you can go about to expose it, to actually maneuver around it, to set up records where they are the criminal for continually attacking you. You can show other people, and that story gets told and retold and retold, and all of a sudden our resistance steps up, and our objection and an overthrow of that, there is no way they can get the one leg of the three-legged stool. If they can't get their community trust building, they've lost, I guess is the point here. As long as we live in our illusions, that trust building is going to be easy for them, just like it is when you use their FRN or anything else that's foreign to us. This is the very reason you could put this as a list and show you these are the very reasons why we can't continue this. This is elements actionable. I know that because that's what we sued to enjoin. We said this is a lawless. These people are committing felonies and treason to do this. And at the time, I didn't even have the absolute proof from their mouth. I know now, I absolutely know why they didn't open that can of whoop-ass we gave them. It's on their own documentation that they admitted to doing that. So even if you kind of don't understand what a default judgment when a state doesn't come in to protect its officers or its employees, and they don't, or in the Bar Association, who should have the law in their mind, can't answer, got their mouth all zipped up. Even if you don't understand that process, I don't see why you can't understand that they didn't answer, and this tells you that that's exactly what they're doing. It comes from the unqualified one, apparently. That alone should just have your mind just, wait a minute. If you think about this and you care, Wait a minute. How is community policing a federal imposition in the local state statutes actionable to take away all my rights? How is that? And then I have to ask you, once you find out, or you think you can find out that at least the high probability of why, what you're going to do about it. Because as long as you don't, you're agreeing as a victim to the abuser. And that's another element of your ability to say, listen, I have justification. You're an abuser, and I don't agree that you abuse me no more. And I know you're going to abuse me because you're an abuser. You're going to abuse me for finding that out and talking about it. It's a self-evident statement now. Let him abuse you. And you call it out. And my mind flashed in my mind of some kind of Life of Brian or something where the king is coming out to the guy talking about the king, railing against the king, and I have rights and I have to speak the rights, and the king's going out and chokes him. And he's still yelling his rights while the king is choking him. Okay, so I told you before, I wrote a document back pre-2000 and said we live in the current Middle Ages. You can expect the king to come over and try and choke you off while you try to prove the fact of his non-authority. That it's purely authorita. The emperor wears no clothes. The military wears police clothes. They are criminals to even community policing. And that's okay. What world do you live in, folks? You have to make this determined. You have to use these facts that you're given. I believe in my studies that every one of those things is applicable someplace, and I can do the analysis. This is not some idea I have, an opinion that I'm stating that these things are there, unproven, in order to have them happen. No, these are there. And there's so much there that when we complained, or actually made the claim, for the purposes of injunction, those that were doing it could not answer and would not answer. They're doing it. This paragraph is another confirmation. I don't know what more to tell you, actually, when I look at this. Except, we live in a military consequence globally, and these people are just the everybody, it seems to me, is a tool for the military consequence, whether they know it or not. Remember, it's on need-to-know basis. Everything's compartmentalized. Judges are probably told, and probably willfully, because they're moving their own agenda along, you cannot let this out. Why, when you go to court, you ask a question, they can't tell you the truth. As if this was the honest judge, and he just found himself in a place, and he's going to try and administer justice within an unjust system. He can't tell you, because if he does, he'll find himself in trouble. And so that's how it's all, what do we hear about the MI5 pedophile ring in Europe? It's all bank blackmail. You live in a completely lawless state from the background of it. And you won't see that. It's all explained to you as frailties here and there. Oh, the judge was, he was addicted to kiddie porn. Oh, he abused people and so badly we had to remove him from office. Oh, he was a bad taxpayer. All these excuses to get you. Oh, he's too drunk. All of a sudden you develop. Oh, pretty soon. Oh, this judge is dead. It was an accidental shooting, or Loeffner did it. Come on. So the military consequence, we do a lot of this puffing and going and puffing our chest, and we hear the nonsense all the time. We tend to want to believe in it. We don't call it out. We don't explain it to ourselves, so we put it in a category of all the elements that they're doing to show who they really are. This next report comes out. I thought it was interesting. The self-evidence of the absurdity of it is just replete. As anything, when you start seeing these, the U.S. deploys 2 aircraft carriers to the Mediterranean to, quote, send a clear message to Russia. Over the weekend, Zero Hedge noted that the U.S. aircraft carrier USS Harry Truman which has served as a launching point for a near-constant barrage of airstrikes on the Islamic State targets in Iraq and Syria, and which since November has accounted for little more than half of the total sorties flown over those two countries by the U.S. military, recently crossed the Suez Canal in an unplanned trip to the Mediterranean. Okay, so we're the one causing all that anyway. All that bombing and running and expense, and we haven't stopped is. Russia goes in there within 3 months, really puts a big dent. They understand the geopolitical things. They have to kind of pull out. They're monitoring. This big story's there, but it's pretty fascinating. This was to send a message. They squeezed this big Air Force task force through the Suez Canal, through into the Gulf, and now we're going to make some noise, sending a clear message to Russia. The pivot, where the United States says that this aircraft carrier was supposed to go into dock for maintenance. Oh, we quickly pivoted into the Suez Canal, showed up in the Gulf, and we are sending a message to Russia of our operational flexibility. It provides some needed presence in the Mediterranean to check the Russians, the official said. The unpredictability of what we did with Truman kind of makes them think twice. Has to be a pretty funny joke, because I started busting up. If I was drinking a cup of coffee, I probably would have spewed it on my monitor. It provides some needed presence in the Mediterranean to check Russians, and it's an unpredictability of what we did. Folks, a nation with 14 aircraft carriers, do you think messing with 2 really made a big deal here? Do you think it really sent a message that they sent an aircraft carrier to another spot? Instead of the head fake, it was going to go to maintenance and didn't? Well, what message, what are they mind game are they playing with themselves to say that moving an aircraft carrier that could be replaced by one of 13 others or whatever we have? In other words, of 14, there wasn't one in the Gulf where it could have already been. The head fake, we were going to send it to maintenance. No, we're going to squeeze it through the Suez Canal, put at risk there, and then show up at the Gulf. We really taught the Russians our flexibility. We've got 14 or 15 of them things, folks. What nonsense are we being told about how this thing all works that we keep, maybe my listeners don't, that we do as the world, what we do and the people agree, we did this head fake on Russia. The presence of 2 carrier strike groups in the Mediterranean demonstrates our commitment to safety and security in the region. Is a lie. But they're claiming this big old deal here for your consumption, if you'll agree to it, was the head fake that really, really caught the Russians off guard. Oh, we didn't send it to maintenance. We pivoted over into the Gulf. That's a surprise. That's flexible. There are undoubtedly folks who are watching that, and this is just a graphic representation of what we're capable of. I'm shaken, folks. I know the Russians really are. These are the lunatics, folks, in the military that adjust your world. They adjust everything that's going on. This is the philosophies they work with, that moving a aircraft carrier, a head fake, is a big deal. See, so now it makes sense that they won't recognize that all these sorties they did really haven't stopped anything. And this is the big ongoing deception that happens, and it's just an essence of what happens in your life at home. The outrageous false front they put on this maneuverability, flexibility of moving the Truman from the Mediterranean into the Gulf because we said it was going to go on maintenance. Oh, now the Russians know we're flexible and they better not do nothing on something that Russia's not doing anyway. Again, a fabricated condition, folks, is the nonsense that we in the world accept that really is shameful. It's embarrassing. Now, are we going to get out there and stop that? No, but we can start sending the message where we're willing to come after the people locally. See, there's some people locally in Washington, D.C. could do this. It's just as easy as the people locally in any other state can do it there. And all of a sudden, the groundswell of activity happens on point, in the right way, exposing all this nonsense, and it makes them afraid where they are. They're more afraid of how their ass is catching than the conflagration they want to put down on your head when they want to come and do community policing. Or was that statement that just popped in my head? It wasn't a really complete statement. It was, when you fear the government, that's tyranny, but when the government fears you, that's That's normal to a free people. So we're not doing our job. They're doing this nonsense. We really did the head fake on Russia. These are the same people that are deciding to go over to China, folks. I told you be careful what's going on in China. They keep interacting. Accidents happen, folks. This is the stupid stuff they do on purpose. For all y'all that are thinking you're going to rely on your electronics, just a warning for you. If you've been using your GPS and got lost and couldn't come back in time for the broadcast, you should have got this warning. FAA warns of GPS outages this month during mysterious tests on west coasts. Over GPS, it's starting out in the Mojave Desert, and it goes all the way up into Oregon and Idaho and Montana. Clearly takes out all of LA, Los Angeles area. They said no planes should be flying at certain levels. I don't know how they're moving LA while this test is going on, but they're explaining to us that they have the capacity to interfere at some level with GPS. I wanted to let you know that if you didn't know, this is there. If you're going to rely on these electronic devices, all your electronic devices has a technology countermeasure. Whatever they're testing here, I don't know. Mind boggles. They don't tell us, but this is ability. The military just does the test. I don't know if any of your jurisdictions ever got to coordinate with this to put your input, but they're going to do it anyway. Now, what type of world do you live in where they may have warfare necessities, but that there's, in this country at least, they're supposed to have meetings about it? What country do you live in when that stops happening? What kind of a country do you live in? You think Battlefield America is now in their control for sure? You think the false front they've been putting on us is really coming undone? Yeah, that's up. You can disregard it or you can regard it. But if you use GPS and they do this, if you think your electronics is going to work when you have to do a bug out or in the middle of not a bug out, but just trying to use it, you find yourself lost, shame on you, because here was the message right here. They can take your electronics out just pretty much at will. They have, again, their own method. They have the insiders. These people run the country. The military consequence is driving the force. Again, why there's no plan A on the civil side is because the military is running it. And yet those same civil side officials, the warmongers that come underneath the banner of progress, they want you to think that they're just do-gooders. Well, they are do-gooders. There's no gooders in their do-gooders ship. They bring these agendas. Obama did this community policing. That's a lie, folks. It's actually a criminality upon you. But he has people around him. One of them was this woman, Hillary Clinton, moving along to try and be the next selected president. Supposedly from the Democratic Party. She's just a big neocon herself, and worse. They're all using it's funny. They're all using the same words that Obama did too. It's scary. Both sides, they're now using the same stuff. But anyway, stunning emails reveal how Clinton Foundation donor bought seat as Hillary's nuclear weapons advisor. Okay, so I'm not going to, again, I don't really have much to read this. This is someone bought their way into a position who had no experience in nuclear as a weapons advisor. Even the people in the advisor, as the committee people, they had questions. They went and did some checks, but there's not much they're going to do because the fix is in on this. But these are the kind of people they have making in policy making, people that are not qualified. They're waving a saber of head fake that was supposed to send a message, and they're on the trigger of a nuclear weapons war, folks. Utilizing people that can buy their positions into these places that are the seats of decision. And they do it through charitable organizations. I can remind you of the Panama Papers. This is the reality. This is how it gets done. This is the reality of the world that's making, the people that are making decisions, supposedly for your security. The advice, the statement from somebody that's on the pulse of this thing, actually the military themselves, saying that a head fake should send a message, a graphic message of our flexibility, and all we did was move a ship from one sea to another. And the big deal was, we said, but we were going to send it into maintenance. Well, that taught them we're real flexible. Folks, your Navy has to do that. Anyway, so We got people in seats of decision as well that aren't qualified. Let me just translate that to you locally. The people you see in the seats of decision are just voted by people. They're not qualified. They're not qualified in the law better than you can be qualified in the law. We prove this every second of every day. We're just a bunch of ignorant people believing that those ignorant people have a say that's authoritative. It's just authorita. You don't even know your own voting dynamics. It takes at least, and I was told this is not my study, this is a study of someone who was very intelligent about figuring out even to look to study it. He was going to be doing this political thing and wanted to see what is his chances against the good old boy system. Found out if you don't bring 68% of the voters that are voting, that the bulk of it vote into your cause, you will not change status quo, because everyone that's in the government numbers about 20 to 30%, or their affiliates could get higher. You have to overcome that status quo vote that will always vote the same thing in, because they're just going to keep their jobs. If you don't get that measure of happening, you're not going to change much. What we're showing is it doesn't matter which one you vote, nothing's going to change much. Not at the federal level. And for as much I see people promoting Trump, there's some things he just doesn't see. He wrote something about, he was sympathetic or felt that the miners and the loggers and the ranchers were getting the shaft out in the West. But, he didn't have the insight to know that the way the government's already doing is by breaking the law, that he agreed that he would temper what they were doing. He would temper the agency's action. He didn't say he'd call it out for the crime that he knows it is, because he doesn't know. And this is the problem, that we're walking with a bunch of people that don't know what's going on, that we think are our leaders, that speak to our emotions, that get us to buy into their rhetoric. But this is the current rhetoric, which is just lies. It's not a rhetoric based on logic, if we can go that far. That it's just a bunch of nonsense. We keep buying into it. And behind the scenes, the system stays the same. And yet I see we can go in and we can start with proper people in the proper places, people who really want to do the law, who really want to limit the jurisdictions locally. We can have a lot of force and effect and all that. It may be still happening, but we're more likely gaining the knowledge and putting people in the seats of decision that are knowledgeable about the law and wanting it to work. We have a better option there. And I just tell you, it's not perfect, but it's a better option. All the letters I may have ever sent to a congressman or wherever, outside of the local people that we work with in the county, have never, ever had force and effect. The people that I work with, these people that are in the seats of decision to bring the law and the remedies that are not told to them to do the better thing, if not the right thing, is so much more effective. It's astounding. Astounding. And the system doesn't know how to deal with that, because most everybody's not knowledgeable. And so you're the only one bringing the actual knowledge. And I'm not talking knowledge like just this esoteric, it's in my head, I tell you. No, you have the documents. You just, here's the proof, black and white, as I've been telling you. So inside the system, you got this, this email thing is about the illegality of Clinton having these emails in a non-secure server and violating this, and it's a big joke. But the point is it's digital data that's available, and it's digital data that the government wants to use or get a hold of. And this is what I talk about. We talk about being vulnerable to it. Which, how else can we do it? Not be vulnerable if we don't understand most of it. Some of it seems like it's out there. It's in our computer. Okay, I don't do anything wrong, and it doesn't matter. Folks, the NSA is looking to exploit Internet of Things, including biomedical devices. Did you understand this, folks? Even they're going to exploit biomedical devices. Now, this is kind of interesting to me because a long time ago I was in R&D, research and development. And we literally were making things that weren't in the world technologically, but it was older technology. It was older electronics, materials and such, so we had limitations as well as they probably do today, trying to run the bleeding edge. We were kind of on the bleeding edge. At the time, pacemakers were not as reliable. They didn't last as long. They certainly were not programmable, and you're certainly not programmable from outside, which is what I worked on at the time. we were working on radio, digital programming of pacemakers, set to be able to set parameters and this and that. And so that was kind of cool. It never happened in the world. And we were putting it in the world, and you have your problems, you have your things, you have your successes, and you bring it on, and finally now they're in the market. Now they're just kind of common. But it's always bothered me. First of all, just the external, and then they give you the warning. You got to be careful, like microwaves and stuff. That can interfere with the signal that's inside the chip. That's the problem. Now you're looking at a little bit like EMP energy here, that it interferes with the chip and the timing and all that. May even reprogram it. So that's always been a concern. But when people near and dear to me started to have to need these very same things that I had happened to be a part of, maybe not the same devices, but it's certainly bringing them into the world. They hadn't been there before. No one was working on them at the time. Having been part of that and seeing some of the limitations, and then where they went from there, now that they've got all kinds of stuff going on in them, the fact of hacking really has been a troublesome thing. And those people that I know in my life that have them, I keep checking with them to make sure that they ask their doctor about what some protections are about these. But here it is. I guess my worst fear brought upon me, I suppose, although I don't have any, for my friends, my family, I suppose, and those that are out in the world that are utilizing these devices. The National Security Agency is researching opportunities to collect foreign intelligence, including the possibility of exploiting internet-connected biomedical devices like pacemakers, according to a senior official. Quote, we're looking at it sort of theoretically from a research point of view right now. Richard Leggett of NSA Deputy Director said at a conference on military technology at Washington Newseum, I guess it is, on Friday. So, enough said there. They say in researching opportunities to collect foreign intelligence on your pacemaker is the integration of foreign police from the unqualified one to do community policing in your locale. This is foreign to you. These people, this NSA, all this is foreign to you. So when they start talking about going after foreigners, you better put yourself on the list. This is not a joke. They tell you right here. And they're talking about theoretical. Folks, I'm telling you that it's not theoretical. This is very possible. It's not even hard. There was nothing that I remember us doing to cause a constraint upon electromagnetic radiation, except to some extent for blocking. But if a directed attack could certainly pick stuff up and not have to interfere with it, although certainly they could interfere with it. So let's just look into the future on some benign thing. They want you dead, folks. They got it. You don't want to go to the good room with the pretty pictures. That's the last thing you see is whatever's in your eyes that moment. They hack your Internet of Things pacemaker. Why is it on the Internet anyway? Is anybody thinking about this? And it's a military technology. Okay, I'm getting. Here we go back to broken record, folks. You live in a militarily occupied world, and it's foreign to you. You are the foreigner. This over and over and over. You can't just. I guess you can do anything you want. I keep saying you can't do this. You can't not think about it. You have to realize this is what's going on. And for all of you all that got beat down when you tried to do something, I'm telling you this is why. You thought you were walking into something that there was some justice, or even if you didn't believe in the justice, you were just going to get what you could. There was just not going to be the possibility. And I'm finding out if we hit these people locally, they have no ability to come against us. Oh, they try. That's the part of the restraint. It takes some time. They try. But ultimately, as we found, the entirety of the Bar Association, they weren't big and bad enough to stand up and say, we'll open that can and we'll defeat you. They couldn't even do it. That's the biggest military agent in the country, and if not the world. Rule of law and democracy, folks. They do what they can get away with. If you can keep it, it's all right there for us, and it's done through a military consequence. I know it's hard to see. I know it's hard to believe. But again, markonthebeast@yahoo.com. If you can take the facts of the reality you find, not the one you think you see or you believe you see, but the ones that you see, that actually sits there, honestly, apply them to a set of standards for any type of a government rule, and you tell me what one you come up with. And remember, we'll first identify that. We can work anywhere from 0 on up to the total oppression, I guess is my point. When I saw what I think is the ultimate oppression, repression, constraint, whatever you want to call it, concentrated evil, I said, okay, now I know what the reality could be in any given place. It goes that far. That is a whole better analysis and awareness than to say, oh, I think it's over here, this little thing over here, and they're just not, they're violating the Constitution. There is none. If there was one, they wouldn't be doing what they're doing. And then we find out not only are they putting foreign imposition, not just military, but this foreign, international foreign inside your country, and they're not. So they're violating that. What do you think you're going to meet with these people? For those of you that weren't aware of this, I mean really aware of this. I don't mean just thinking that the government's corrupt. Oh, the judge is no good. I'm talking about realizing there is a plan afoot. It's an executing plan against, in control and security for them against what you do if you ever step up beyond what they are able to constrain, keep you constrained. Again, their whole job is to keep the people from being pissed off. Don't piss off the natives. It's the number one international law in occupying forces. As long as you can pretend that, or pretend that you don't see, or act like you don't see, they're fine. And so the less and less people they have to deal with, the better. The better you have buy-in, the better. It's more peaceful for you. It ain't right, but it's more peaceful for you. And so this is the big obstruction that we run into, that we don't understand how to do more than the head fake around it. Again, back to the conversation from last week, the interview that we had that was being had after this broadcast made a comment. I said, well, why aren't they using the 1871 provisions and statute for the Bundys and those guys to get off? And the guy with the information said the 1871's irrelevant. I said, see, there you go. How can you say the 1871's irrelevant when it makes up the jurisdictional venues of in Title 28 to 88 to 131? How do you come with knowledge and produce truth when you don't understand that? You say something's irrelevant that's actually functioning. How do you even deal with that correctly? You deny what's there for us is not something you got to do. You got to figure out what that's there is real. It's there to use. It's actually in front of us to use, and we have to start using it, not deny it. Not deny it in favor of some lesser standard like a status, which I've told you before. Let's say this thing that since 1968, the United States citizen, or and more to the future, United States person. What if that wasn't relevant in the status you brought with evidence? What if it was not relevant? That whole argument gets blown out the door then. Certainly, the discussion of the reality of venue or lawful jurisdiction has to always be relevant. So to dismiss an old act that is playing today through the statute, to dismiss that as irrelevant is completely missing the point and not going to get you where you want to go. And if you listen to those people, you're going to be like Ammon Bundy. It's pretty simple at some point. You may be like Ammon Bundy anyway because they're trying to make you an example, but it's not for his reason of being thinking that you know the Constitution and not figuring out you're not living in the Constitution. And it wasn't for you anyway. Lysander Spooner told us all about that. But they got to get rid of people. They got to make it more efficient. They got to, they don't want to have this guaranteed payment to you. They got to cut all their costs as well. When they put you on austerity, they can't be paying all these freeloaders. And so you see, the Occupy steps up. We want $15 an hour. What's the answer to about for corporation? But robots. See, they got to get rid of you anyway. So what better way to do that than war, and maybe even nuclear war? They don't care. Oh, they think it's a big head fake deal, just moving an aircraft carrier from one ocean to the other, and they got 14 others that could have been there and wasn't. In other words, Russia isn't doing anything. It's a big head fake for you. You think something's going on. And so, they're going to get rid of people. They got to. That's part of the rules. That's part of what's going on. what is it, Project Iron Mountain, or the document about Iron Mountain talks about a little bit about that, doesn't it? What to do, how to maintain economy in peacetime, because they know war makes money, and so they make perpetual war, and that's even not, now that's running out. Well, they got to get rid of some people. And the Technocracy Rising is a book, Patrick Wood, I think, make a book. Well, he talks about it more as an end. I say it's just a tool. But they got to bring technology in, and they got to move people out and along. And as we were talking before about all these things, these robot things coming on, as I explained to you, and we're now moving from the conversation I had weeks and weeks ago and didn't get to here, just kind of ran out of time, was these trucks and these longshoremen, cranes all being run by computer. Remember, everything's hackable, like the pacemakers. The NSA is looking for inroads on all of it, but don't worry about all that. But the fact is that you're being replaced by robots. All these truck drivers and longshoremen that are going to be replaced because Occupy wanted $15 an hour to bring on the idea that we're going to make a hamburger turn cheaper and quicker than the human, without mistakes and without accidents. In other words, you won't get anything in your hamburger that you didn't order because the cook didn't like you. So we'll at least have that benefit. But this is going to spread out all along and everywhere. Where are you going to get the work when this happens to actually even afford austerity? That the stories are going on, they're coming out, they've been coming out and finally getting back. Rise of robots, 60,000 workers culled from just one factory at China's struggling electronic hub turns to artificial intelligence. So the NSA control of all this is also they will become that artificial intelligence when they can get into places everywhere anytime they want. Domination is what this is at. But here you go, folks. Those are proof that you that are working in places that can be reduced to a robot, 60,000. Can you imagine the size of that factory, folks? 60,000 workers gone. What do they do to pay for their austerity? And they don't get that guaranteed payment yet. But robots are taking care of this now. 60,000 workers. That's all you truckers and longshoremen in the United States of America with the new technology robots that are there. The thing that NSA is going to have control all over. You want a disaster? We'll just fabricate another style. You're subject to it. Only how are you going to get around? You're going to be sitting inside some car that's also got technology in it that's going to drive you wherever you're told to go. Oh, and the places that you didn't think you were going to go. As this technology that's coming on still is baby steps, as I learned in R&D. Man, there's a lot. R&D is a very interesting field, I just tell you. Pretty cool. I don't know why my hair gray over some of the stuff that happens, especially the administrative nonsense that they throw on creation. But then notwithstanding all that, things happen, folks. Our machines are not infallible, and they certainly, like even you wear out, they wear out, and at least we'll have a bunch of grease monkeys, folks. All you human monkeys, grease humans will be out there. But the technology that they're driving around is still not quite right. I guess maybe they'll work it all out. But with 60,000 robots are running in a factory, they're making all the electronics for these cars to run by themselves, and yet we get into a problem. We have the human, if you will, the monkey behind the steering wheel, machine interface, can be defective, and one of the defects is honesty, if you please. Tesla Model S driver crashes into car, blames the autopilot feature. Now, these articles are telling us that the machines are fine. In fact, they'll tell you, because they have a data log, that they found out that the human monkey behind the wheel or the stick actually told the machine to do something it shouldn't have done. This is why last week I was telling you, well, they better get into these machines the ability to stop, notwithstanding the monkey input. In other words, when I tell the car to go fly itself underneath the back end of a semi, it doesn't. It goes to a point and stops like it's supposed to. Now, they're not talking about that part, but they're trying to profess to you that these robots arising are okay. It's the human that's no good. And they aren't. People, the little monkeys that we are, we really aren't. So they are falling into a natural, there's not going to be much argument against this. And these are the stories you're getting out. The machines are fine. The people are no good. And so they're going to justify this substitution. Every time they substitute, they're taking your ability and your excuse that you have a right to be mobile, they take it away from you. Everything's going away to give you the right, taking away your ability to say you need anything. And as soon as you don't need anything, then you have nothing that you can ask for or assert. So this is the silent constraint, the prison that's coming onto us. But this technocracy rising, or this robots rising, and I don't get into the AI takeover thing, but the Matrix is not a movie, but I believe that. But that's, this way, this mechanical robot stuff taking over, I don't think so. Not this way. But they're trying to get you to believe, getting you to buy in that these machines are better, and they're taking your place. And they are taking your place. Not necessarily that they're better, but better for whom also is a question. Not for those that if you don't have another brain cell in your head to do different and become non-dependent on this is encroaching upon you. And we're talking about Tesla's crashing into stuff and they blame it on the car. And so they get you to believe these cars are going to be not crashing into stuff, and yet another story pops up. Official snared in bribery case dies in suspicious crash. Another story out of Florida, I think, where Opelika, where an official inside accused, supposed to be innocent until proven guilty, snared in a bribery case, all of a sudden his car gets driven right into a tree. I suppose they're not telling us about the logs that are available to read that car, and they didn't. Tesla will tell you because out of their defense, but they want to tell you that these things are infallible. Then why did this one drive itself into a tree? So someone else in a government you thought you could trust, well, I shouldn't say that. He's dead. He didn't get to go through jury conviction despite the corruption of the court. So he's assumed he's just an accused of bribery. All of a sudden, his car goes into a tree. He's dead. I wonder what the information that was going to be coming out about this bribery, who was involved, doesn't get out. That I want to tie it back into your community policing and the extent of sustainable development on your life and how that all works under the skin to bring and implement all these things because it takes that many people to do so. You are infiltrated and surrounded is not a joke. This is just a tip of the iceberg of what was going on. If it's not that, then it's just how government is not set up so clearly to actually protect you. That people are pilfering where they can, showing again the human monkey is not to be trusted. And I tell you, that's what our laws really are. It's just when things go bad. When things gone bad, we got to have some objective basis, otherwise some opinion can be rendered against us that has no basis at all and really has no constraint, and there's no way to prove it. So I want to get into the story. We have another somebody else that's involved in some high level officialness, skullduggery, runs himself into a tree in a parking lot. Back into the robots rising, 60,000 workers in one plant in China. Folks, I can't imagine what that's doing to those people as well. And they got billions. Don't feed billions and see what starts to happen. I don't know. Maybe nothing. Maybe you'll be rendered to stealing chickens off a truck like in Venezuela. The government would have been real good to just go ahead and tell people, listen, we're not going to be able to do this. We got a foreign invasion going on, financial destruction happening. We're going to help you out in the way of, you better start making chickens. You better start have chickens around. You better start protecting your eggs. And here we're going to help you on the feed. It's easier to feed a chicken than it is all of you all. You figure that part out, but we got a year to do it because here it comes. Venezuela would have been a lot better to do it that way than to try and think that they could keep order with a bunch of hungry people. That these robots rising kind of construction, taking away your jobs is pushing us into different ways that we start having to do what we have to do. And I told you a long time ago, this is not just me, but I'm just saying I'm on record to show you that what they do is they get you to take a lesser and lesser and lesser job. You're still working, but you're not working for anything. That we have the proof of it if you had any questions about and where those service sector jobs become. It's not production, it's just in service. The grease monkeys you'll become is also the alcohol tenders that you'll be, and proven since 2014, the U.S. has added 45 455,000 waiters and bartenders and lost 10,000 manufacturing workers. So I don't know who's left working to go buy alcohol expensive instead of just growing your own and making it, but there's still that there. But if your job's going to change from what it is to giving a drunk a drink, serving somebody some food. Now, I'm not saying that that's a bad job, and I've known some waitresses that made some good money and bartenders that make some good money. I've got some family members that do it both. They have chosen to do that. They're like professionals in it, so they do pretty well. But this is you're pushed into this austere life. You're going to be doing these kinds of jobs in the future. You're seeing people are be fed and or they'll be drunk or on the verge of it or thinking they're being entertained or anything. But it's right in the notice now that for us that there's no joke about the increase of lesser paying, at least upfront jobs. You know they pay nothing on the hour. You get it by your tips. I don't know where the people are going to pay tips when they got no jobs and you're a drunk, the longshoreman that doesn't have a job. How many times are you going to be in there on whose credit? What kind of lifestyle are you going to have? You're not looking forward. You're not defending yourself. It's written on the walls right here what's happening. But you're going to be moving your job from whatever you were. You're going to have a PhD. You got big expenses in the college for all that training they taught you, and you're going to be a waiter. So whatever, the $15 an hour, and you'll be happy to get that because your austerity check will be at 10. And so it's writing on the wall here about what's going on, the shift of society. The United States is not planning and not planned to do better than maybe even third world nation status because they got to bring everybody into the same control. They really can't bring the undeveloped countries up, so they got to bring you down a whole lot more than they'll be able to bring those up. And they don't want many people up. They want people exploited. 60,000 workers that robots replaced did not have a choice, folks. Where are they going to go now? You know they lived in the urbanite conditions. In fact, those are the way, I think that might have been actually the factory they had to build nets so that the people who committed suicide couldn't. So you don't get out of here until they say so. At the end, when you don't want to go to the pretty room, they're going to just turn off your pacemaker. And they'll have the intelligence to do it. The digital world that you plugged yourself into is the thing that controls you. Again, writing's on the wall. We can believe it or not. So I've asked for people to become non-dependent, do the substance, the weight and measure in the world, get your own, you make your own monetary system that you all work with. Try to figure out what's going on. Watch out, this cashless stuff is coming because it's going to be a controlled situation. They gave it. This is the consensus building thing. They gave it to the libertarian crowd, so-called. The so-called independent capitalists to try and figure out and see what they don't like. Well, they started to absorb it. And they started to use it. What they were doing is it's a test platform for those that are going to come and take it. So the latest iteration is where the big corporations stepped up. Is this thing called Ethereum, and which sounds neat. They had controllable, contracts that you can build a monetary system around, and contracts that are enforceable through the blockchain. A very neat idea. In fact, there's a couple of listeners. I suppose they're listeners. We haven't talked to them for a little while that are hot on it. And in Real Liberty Media, I got the Doge of War. That's based on the Doge coin. It got a little graphic, the Doge of War. It got an aviator helmet and goggles on. That's my little side fund for this. That's where you can donate to Real Liberty Media using the Doge of War coin on the website. But these are all digital coins. They're all cashless society implementations. They're working at this point, and they're not quite yet controlled. But Ethereum is one of these ideas that have come right on the heels to bring all this stuff together, where you have contracts in blockchains. I have not really looked at it too much. I'm just skimming this little bits of it, of what this thing works. But they are now coming out to tell you that it's a double-edged sword, and I say at least, folks. It makes a lot of sense. It makes a lot of excitement. It looks like the innocent technology is just fantastic in my mind. It's the fact that I don't think it's there for us. Ethereum promises that contracts will live forever in the default case, and in fact, unless the contract contains a suicide clause, they are not destroyable. this is a double-edged sword. And on the other hand, the default suicide mode for a contract is the return all funds embedded in the contract to the owner. It's clearly unworkable to have a zero trust system in which the owner of a contract can at will claim all money. This is a discussion about Ethereum. This is a discussion on what I think the digital world's going to. Ethereum is picked up, I think, by at least by Windows or Microsoft. Not Windows, but Microsoft. It was a couple of other big corporations have come up to pick this up, which really, that came up quick too. As soon as Ethereum came online, the first I knew about it, within a week, Microsoft was tagging on. I said, no, there's really, just that alone was a big problem. But this discussion, you need, those of you that are looking into what cashless societies and future contracts and future judicial type decisions are going to be made, and you heard about the AI, artificial intelligence, computer, a program from IBM that the one household attorney household was using for bankruptcies. This is all going to be built into all this stuff. These are not secret. These are all going to be integrated with the government. So, word to the wise, look at what this is about. I'll give you the link. I won't go on more. This is an interesting discussion that was reading about it. I don't want to go through all of it. I just don't have the time to touch all this stuff. But you're going to have to take your time to become aware of it. I'm going to continue to state a caution, a warning. Warning, Will Robinson. There's just something that isn't working on this, even though I really like the idea. Behind the woodshed, I don't like getting out. I want to be independent, be non-dependent on the system. I am, and that's why I don't have much. But systems like this really looked attractive, except I started to see, even for as little bit as I could find in them, they weren't so non-dependent. And here comes and then now you tie your contracts to it, then they're going to have arbitration and this and that, and there's problems within the software, there's problems within the contracts, there's problem within the law of it all. It's all brand new, not that can't be worked out, but it's all going to be based on some foreign rule of law condition, and it's going to be under international control, I can only anticipate. Digital has no jurisdiction but itself, folks, and it's nothing tangible. You can be lost by accident. I hear, in fact, in the RLM chat room, I see, I think I got my wallet, I lost it, or I couldn't get in it, or I don't even know what you can do with it, how they get messed up. You lose everything. It's not tangible. And then you have the outside hacking potential. And then you have inside the rules, you even have potential problems. And this is the contract law. You've seen what the Bar Association does with a breach contract. You see what they do with an ostensible breach of the law of so-called statutes. What nonsense that they put around that. So I'm going to call a warning on this still. I think it's a neat idea, but I don't think, I think you need to be really versed. Again, you need to be versed in digital, or else we really need to hold fast on weight and measure the stuff that they want to convince us is inconvenient, having to have ounces of gold, or if you have that much, or even silver. The poor man's daily bread is in silver. I don't know, folks. I think we have to make that decision soon, and we better start holding on with dear life to this thing for dear life, because they're trying to wrest it from you. And this is all the military. You cannot escape the fact that the government's behind the digital side of this. You just can't. We just heard it. The NSA looking at even biomedical stuff. The Internet of Things was your warning, and then it comes out. And again, I don't know. I can't take the time. I don't have the time to take and verify everything is exactly accurate. These things certainly kind of touch on my concerns. Where we have now, subsequent to that Ethereum report, and some of the problems in the contracts and all these things. And sure, it's a developing thing, so that's not the problem that I have with the problems. It's that it's the big data is already jumping in on it, and big bank and big governments inside the back of it. And then here we have it. Blockchain entrepreneur tells central bankers, get into the digital thing for control. That's exactly what I told you. I could not believe that the title was that. I told you this quite a bit ago with this digital control system. It's just control. They got you coming, got you going. They got your life in the palm of their little, not in the palm of their hand. Now it's at the point of a finger, a digit going after your digit. The direction of digital currencies are headed, where they are headed is really bad. I assume this author is it's from the Economic Policy Journal. I don't know their source. I don't know anything about it. I don't know how they are relative to where they were relative to Bitcoin and all that. I don't know. But they certainly are putting They are certainly calling up a problem that I've seen that makes sense to me, that some people haven't answered clearly to me, that continually to be a big problem with the digital currency, cashless society, and the big data is in on it already. They're ahead of us. The head of a startup, Adam Ludwin, CEO of San Francisco-based Chain, was recently in Washington, D.C. to introduce the digital blockchain to central bankers. This is on the heels of that other story I told you when this happened. This report comes back to explain a little bit more for those of you that are involved. He says that this reporter saying he met with central bankers from 90 countries, including Federal Reserve Chair Yellen. I don't know why she's yelling. I don't know why she can't just talk softly and carry a big stick. I don't know. Maybe she'd be nice if she wasn't carrying the stick at all, but she's got something she's yelling about, as well as officials from the International Monetary Fund, World Bank, and Bank of International Settlements. That should be big red flags. This is no joke. This is the core of it, folks. So, not to talk more about it, I'm not an expert. Like I said, I'm really tossed. I like some of the technology. I just think it's not ours. I just think it's not in our control, and I think if you want to continue to live a non-dependent life, you're going to have to forego this or figure out a way to keep it independent, not like dark web, which is kind of a fallacy in a way, possibly. But again, the minds that are being able to focus on this, like I've focused on land disposal law, are going to be required that you can trust, as you should be able. I hope you can trust me for doing that, bringing that scale and law quality and quantity of knowledge and application experience. We're going to have some people that we can do that in this realm. Given that it is an efficient way to go, it is seemingly the way to happen. But I have a problem with the intangibility of it all, and I think we have to. That's one of the principles we're not going to be able to forego. Maybe we can have a perpetual contract, but the payments and all that system that can't be integrated with this, because it's just an electron that is essentially some one mouse click or one digit poke on a keyboard valid. I mean, that's it. So our lives are dependent on that. This technocracy rising stuff is all around us. It's coming around us. As they told us, I would have never, it was a kind of a joke in a way. How can it get this absurd? Back in the 70s, they're talking about all this stuff. Cashless society was a big, they made big hoopla about it all. But here it is. It's right here, and it's in ways I couldn't even fathom at the time, and probably can't now. I got too much. There's just too much in my mind. I can't really do too much anymore. I'm really beyond. I've been dropping a lot of sticks. Not that they're damaging anybody, but there's just so much to get done and not many people to do it that there's no way I can pick this up. And maybe it's just because of that I'm saying be forewarned and forearmed to stick with the tried and true principles of weight and measure and actual substance of coins. Go to a miner, get your value from his bank, the bank of his deposit, and have him make you some solid coins and start getting a trust system built that way. That was partly what I was hoping the Jefferson Mining District could do. We're probably not going to be able to get that. That's a dream in a way. It's very, very plausible and probable to be done, but we just don't have enough people to do all the work it takes to pull this stuff out. You literally have a new, it's actually an older existence, an older thing. We are stepping back to foundation, not into the ether of amenity and digital, in the digital ether of control by digit. We do have to go back to substance, but in fact it's a foundational substance. It just takes a lot of work to re-get that, because they've eaten out our substance, haven't they? And that's the whole point. They eat out our substance. Our substance is our wealth. And it's all planned to do that. It's planned to make an amenity, a feeling, a belief valuable. And then have some third party reflexively decide the value of that against substance. Then that one that's of the reflexive value that you put in his opinion and trust in his or her opinion has a standard that says if we can steal the property from these people, we get to do it where appropriate. Folks, what's not appropriate before a thief? What's not appropriate before a psychopath? If you're in the way between him and his objective, or her and her objective. You notice there's lots of women stepping up to do this, which is another exploitation that women don't even understand. I mean, I look around the world, see what's happening. Oh, the glass ceiling, this and that, and then and gender neutrality, and women need to be, and more STEM women and technologies. What a facade. We're really, women are being sold down the river again and again. And then men are put in a position, if you say something, you should be burnt like a witch. You heretic. And so this is the topsy-turviness of it all. We went from substance into amenity, into feeling, into belief, into things of non-actual value, or subjective value, as we would say it another way. And so it's up to us. We can decide to live in this fairy tale world of someone else's feelings, and have to develop a third bathroom, or go to porta potties, or start to watch the world develop, talk about personality that all of a sudden has gender, when personality is a fiction in law that is neutral to gender. No one's picked up the fact that they want to be, all these people that are confused and harmed and abused, they want us to continue the abuse. They want to consider themselves zits onto their identity, to continue the confusion, to make them neutral to the confusion they're imposing on you. What nonsense. I don't get into many discussions about it, but I've told you, I've already brought it out. I'm on record. What I see going on is someone else's abuse that they're forcing me to agree to, and I don't agree with that. And no one's come to me in many broadcasts when I've made the question about why people are confused in gender or confused in a role. For all the people that want to get all over that word, they're being put in roles, but they are attacking those that would speak to it. No one's come to me to show that my basis for why I believe what I do regarding these abuses that people take onto themselves, that they want me to enforce, why those views are wrong. And until then, I have to go with my experience. And I don't think it violates anybody to question these things when I think what they're doing is extending their abuses onto me and everybody else. And this is what you see. The world is abusing you. The military abuses you. The police abuse you. Your leaders, so-called, in your locales, they think that they are running this show for you. And they abuse you, and they disregard you, they disrespect you, and you take it. You are the human with the ring in your nose. You're the beast of burden walking as an accessory to the crime against you. I don't know how else to describe this condition. There's really no sympathy for those that want to continue the ring in the nose, but heck, don't try to kick me because I'm asking you to take the ring out. Don't run over to the guy holding the rope with the ring in your nose and side with him either. We really have some action to take here. It's not just certainly not opinion. It certainly doesn't happen behind the keyboard. Although I do quite a bit of work on the keyboard, it's really just it's for notices and education and making records, which we then take direct action with. Tangible action that nobody can refute, that nobody, at least till now, can even defend against a contrary view. And why? Is because we come with an objective basis that kept the peace in the world or in our world, and we insist on it now. We don't allow this amenity-driven nonsense into our lives. I hope you agree. I hope you'll step up to stop it. Hope you start to get the proper perspective to be able to discuss against it, so it's not their question that they bring for a decision on a third-party mob against you. Thank you for tuning in today. Hope you all got something out of here today, and we'll take it forward and do something with it. Thank you to Grimner again on reallibertymedia.com. And thank you for the website, the Blogcaster, and freedomnetwork.com, Bo Diddy at Social Network, and UCY.tv. Thank you for simulcasting and doing all the past casts during the week. I appreciate all that. And the terrestrial broadcasters again. Thank you all for helping. Thank you all for your contributions and donations of information and questions and needs. And we'll talk with you next week. Tech diffs and nature willing. Well, that's another lesson. I hope with today's information you can take it to those that misbehave. From behind the woodshed, leaving his mark on the beast, this is Hal Anthony. Till next time, journey with purpose.
feels like.
Son, you just opened a whole case of whoop-ass.